Hello everyone, welcome to the YouTube channel of Consulting Club FMS Delhi. In this video series, we'll be discussing multiple types of consulting case frameworks, and in each video, we'll be solving a case how we should solve it in a formal interview setting. So, hi Mrityunjay, how are you feeling today?
Hi Kaushik, glad to be here.
Great, great. So, we'll be doing a market entry case today, if that works with you.
Yes, that sounds perfect.
So, Mrityunjay, your client is TikTok, and assuming that TikTok is no longer banned in India, and they want to explore the opportunity of re-entering the market of India. Your problem statement is that should they enter the market, and if they should, then how they should basically enter the market.
All right, that is an interesting problem. So, just to make sure that we're on the same page, I'll just reiterate the problem statement if that's okay.
Sure.
So, our client is TikTok, and assuming that they're no longer banned in India and want to re enter the Indian market, we have to basically decide whether they should do so, and if yes, then what should be their modus operandi. Have I gotten that right?
Absolutely.
All right, perfect. That sounds good. So before I begin, I would have some clarifying questions to sort of understand the client and the landscape better. Should I go ahead and ask those?
Yeah, yeah, please do.
All right. So my foremost question here would be, what is the objective of TikTok for re-entering the Indian market? Are they trying to reclaim the market share that they had pre to 2020, or are they targeting profitability?
Okay, so our client is pretty sure on the market share aspect. They are aiming to get a reasonable amount of market share in their first year only. What their actual target is to achieve the profitability in the first year in Indian market.
All right, sure. That sounds good. Uh, Another thing I would like to clarify, correct me if I'm wrong. The primary reason that TikTok was banned in India had to do with data concerns. So, at an individual level, that would be data privacy for the Indian citizens, and at the national level, it would, of course, then translate to national security concerns, right? Is that correct, or were there other reasons as well?
So there were some other results as well, which were like primarily driven from the political aspects, but we don't need to get into that. We'll be focusing on this aspect that you have mentioned.
Understood.
Yeah.
That sounds fair. So the reason I asked this is given these risks, right, and they might also reappear, are there some very strong motivations that we have for re-entering the Indian market in particular, despite these risks?
So there is no like driving force as such to enter the market. It's just that we've already doing very well in the similar market geographies, and India being such a large economy, we shouldn't lose it out based on some small factors. Since the ban is already lifted, then our client is eager to explore the opportunity again.
Fair enough, that's fair. So since you mentioned that we're doing well in other markets, I would like to understand our performance in these markets, and are there any particular markets where we're, for example, performing very well?
So in general, we are doing very well in China and other Southeast Asian countries as well.
All right, sounds good. So, given their cultural proximity to the Indian market, that could also be a positive sign for us. Finally, do we know the figures for the industry, as in the growth rate for the social media or maybe the short form video industry as a whole, vis-a-vis that for TikTok?
Yeah, the CAGR that you can assume for this case would be, let's take a rough amount of 10%.
All right. So 10% is the industry CAGR or for TikTok?
Let's take industry CAGR.
All right. And do we know the same for TikTok as well?
You can assume it to be similar to industry only. You can assume it to be slightly on the lower side of the 10%. You can take 7 to 8%.
All right. Sounds fair. Uh, s- Finally, are there any preconditions set by the government to re-enter the Indian market?
No as such.
All right. And do we also have any temporal or budgetary constraints that I should keep in mind going forward?
Let's keep an open mind. I think there is no timeline or budget constraints as of now.
All right, sure. That sounds wonderful. So I think I'm ready to begin. Could I just take a couple seconds to structure my thoughts?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
All right. All right. Largely speaking, I would like to begin by looking at the attractiveness of the market and the product market fit vis-a-vis India. Then I would also look at the feasibility of entering the Indian market, which would take into account both financial and operational considerations. So those would be the two major drivers in feasibility. Then I would like to look at the risks that might be associated with this endeavor. And finally, I would like to explore the modes of entry through which we can tap into the Indian market. Does that sound good, or is there
Yeah,
something else that I
sounds
should
fair.
include?
I think we can proceed.
All right, sure. So I would like to begin with looking at the market attractiveness. Here, I would first look at a company analysis, then I would look at an industry analysis, which would also include an analysis of our competitors.
Okay.
Then finally, I would look at a customer analysis, which would also sort of delve into how many customers we can target when we launch into the market. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds perfectly fine. We can start with the company analysis.
All right, sure. So within the company analysis, I would look at what basically differentiates TikTok, and in line with that, what would be the benefits that accrue to both the creators on the platform as well as the users or consumers of the platform. Does that sound
Okay.
good?
Yeah.
All right. So for the creators, there would be monetary as well as non-monetary considerations. So the monetary considerations would firstly be the revenues that they get per impression from their content, and the other could be from sales through affiliate marketing as well as the TikTok shop.
Okay.
Then the non-monetary factors would of course be reach. So from what I know, TikTok is more of an interest-based app, and their algorithm is also very hyper-personalized. So that could sort of benefit local creators, which would be more prevalent in India, and especially the newly digitally equipped one. So reach could be a very attractive factor for them, I believe. And that brings me to the final factor, which would be features. TikTok, from what I know, again also has better features in terms of editing tools, filters, effects, and the like compared to other social media platforms. So that could also be a plus point for creators. Is there anything I'm missing on the creator front?
Yeah, I think we've seen all the points over here. We can proceed to the content side. What all factors do we need to look at there?
Right. So for the consumers of the content, I think there would again be two considerations, which would be in terms of their journey, which would be discovery and then purchase, because TikTok is, unlike other social media platforms, also a very purchase-driven app. So in the discovery phase, it would again sort of circle back to the hyper-personalized recommendation algorithm. And that could also mitigate the scroll fatigue that they might have on other platforms, which do not offer the same depth of content as well as the recommendations that TikTok might. And as for
Okay.
purchases, again, for other platforms, usually you do have affiliate marketing and you have hyperlinks basically to other platforms where you can shop, wherein TikTok has a built-in marketplace, which is the TikTok shop. Which I believe again can be attractive when it comes to the company analysis for a market like India. Does that sound good? Can I then move on to the industry and competitor analysis?
Yeah, I think so far so good. All advantages I can see. We can proceed with the competitor analysis.
All right, wonderful. So do we also have any figures as regards the growth rates for our competitors? Or maybe I should begin by looking at who our competitors could be, if that sounds good.
Yeah, we can begin with that, I think.
All right, makes sense. So I can think of both global and local competitors. So the global competitors would again be the industry incumbents, which would be largely Meta and Google. Within Meta, it would be Instagram and Facebook. And for Google, it would of course be YouTube and especially Shorts, since TikTok also largely revolves around the short form video content. Then the local ones would be pre-installed applications in certain phones such as Josh, Mod, etc., which are more vernacular in nature and also lack sort of content sophistication, which we might expect on other platforms.
Okay.
So I believe a larger threat for us would be the global ones rather than the local ones. Would that be a correct assumption?
Yeah, I think it's a fair assumption. I think in that also we can say that Meta is our primary competitor and not the Google directly. Uh,
Understood.
yeah.
All right, sure. Sounds wonderful. So I think our most direct competitor then would be Instagram, more specifically Reels on Instagram. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
All right, great. So do we also know the growth rate for Instagram in particular in India?
Not as such, but you can assume it to be slightly higher than the industry average for the social media apps.
All right, sure. That sounds good. So although it is a competitive market, I think again, leveraging the moat that I looked at in the company analysis, it does seem like a worthwhile venture to me so far. Finally, I'll be looking at the customer analysis. Would that be good?
Yeah, yeah, please do so.
All right. So just looking at the overall picture first. So almost half of India is Gen Z or Gen Alpha, and we know that TikTok globally also has younger audiences. So that could be a major plus point for us, and that does give us, as you mentioned yourself, given India's large population and growing demand, we could have hundreds of million potential users for the application.
Right.
So with that being said, should I look at the market share we can capture, or do we have any numbers regarding the same already?
So we don't have the number exactly. Can you do a quick estimate on this?
All right, sure. That sounds good. Can I just take a couple seconds again?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. So I have begun with the total population of India, which is 140 crores, out of which 60% would have access to the internet. So given 60% internet penetration, that brings us to 84 crores.
Okay.
Then out of these, 80% would have smartphones as well, given that we've already narrowed it down to people with internet penetration. So that gives us around 70 crores. Now, looking at this, I would then move on to an age-wise distribution because the frequency of the usage of social media would, of course, vary significantly by age.
Makes
Does that
sense.
sound fair?
Yeah, yeah, makes sense.
All right, sure. So, for the 0 to 15 age group, I've assumed that only about 20% would be using social media. For the 15 to 24 age group, I think it's virtually used by everyone, so it would be around 90%. For the 25 to
Okay.
34 age group, I've assumed that around 60% would be using social media. For the 35 to 54 age group, it would be around 30%. And for the 55 plus age group, I think it would be very negligible, so we can ignore that. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, sounds fair.
All right, so adding up all the numbers gives us a total addressable market of around 30 crore people who use social media.
Okay.
After this, I've assumed a market share of 40% approximately for TikTok. Would that be viable?
40% market share of TikTok
Yes.
in first year. Do you have any like rationale behind it that how did you come up with this number?
Right. So a few considerations that I took into mind were, firstly, given the unique nature of the social media market, it is not a zero-sum game, right? People are free
Hmm.
to download as many applications as possible. And with an application making a comeback after so many years, naturally, people, especially who used it earlier, would also be inclined to try it out again. So that would be one factor. And the other would be simply the fact that TikTok did have a very formidable market share even before it was banned in India. So I think this number should be reasonable.
Yeah, right to mention the last point. So before we got banned, our market share was somewhere around that only. It was little higher than that. So we can be little realistic in this matter and take 40%. Yeah, I think it's fair to assume that. We can proceed, yeah.
All right, that sounds good. So that gives us approximately 12 crore users. Is that a good enough number?
Okay, so this is my market share of TikTok in India.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, got it.
All right. I would now like to look at the feasibility. I will begin with the financial feasibility. So do we have any figures, or should I begin with maybe laying out what the potential revenue streams and costs could be for TikTok?
Yeah, we have a numbers, but I would still want to hear what revenue streams and what cost breakdown that you have in mind. So yeah, if you can share that.
All right, sure. I'll just take a second to jot them down.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so there would primarily be two major revenue streams, I believe. The first would be the revenues accruing from the advertisements that we have on the content on TikTok, and the second would be the cut from the TikTok shop transactions. So, from what I know, the TikTok shop is very popular in the Southeast Asian region in particular, and how TikTok earns from that is based on what the sellers essentially sell in the marketplace. TikTok also takes a commission or cut on those transactions. Then coming to the costs, there would of course be certain costs pertaining to the capital expenditure, which would firstly be the data infrastructure that we might have to set up in India, then the licensing and legal fees that we might have to pay, and finally any minor R&D costs to cater to the Indian market in particular. Then we would also have operating expenditure, which would include again our marketing or acquisition costs. Then, if we're providing any incentives or bonuses to our creators, then in terms of our content, the moderation team that we might have in place to moderate the content, the server maintenance costs, and finally any other miscellaneous administrative and legal costs. So, does
Okay.
that sound comprehensive enough, or am I missing something?
Yeah, I think it sounds comprehensive enough. So in revenue streams, we can ignore the TikTok shop variant over here. In first year in India, we don't want to experiment with that. Let's
Sure,
start with the ad revenue only.
that sounds fair.
So I'll give you a number over here. So average revenue per user from all ads, you can consider it to be 240 rupees.
240 rupees. All
Yeah.
right.
And let's take variable cost, which you can also term as customer acquisition cost, that you can take as let's say 100 rupees.
All right.
This is per user. Okay.
Understood.
And let's make your life easier on all those fixed costs, right? Let's take a total fixed cost for the first year to be 1600 crores.
1600 crores. Okay, understood.
Okay. All figures sorted. Do you want me to repeat?
Yes, that sounds good. Just to make sure that I've gotten them right, the ARPU is 240 rupees. The CAC per customer is 100 rupees. And all fixed costs add up to 1600 crores for the first year.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, wonderful. So given that the market size that we had come up with for TikTok was 12 crores, um, and the ARPU is 240 and the CAC is 100. That would give us approximately 140 profits net cost per customer. So that would be 140 into 12 crores, which would be 1680 crores. And if we subtract the fixed cost from that, that gives us around 80 crores in profit. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think it sounds right to me. Yeah.
All right. So looking at the financial side of things, is this number attractive enough for TikTok?
Yeah, I think since our target was to break even in first year, the 80 crores is a healthy profit, and I think we should be comfortable with that.
That being said, I think I can then move on to the operational considerations that TikTok might have to take into account when entering the Indian market.
Yeah, so if you can like structure it down into what all factors that you can consider over here.
All right, sure. I'll just take a couple seconds for the same.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so I will broadly be looking at three aspects in setting up the value chain when it comes to the operational considerations. The first would be, of course, before entry, some prerequisites that we would have to keep in mind. I would then look at some content related concerns as regards the operational capabilities, and finally, payment related concerns. Does that sound good? Should I dive deeper into these?
Yeah, we can start with the prerequisites. What all factors do we want to look at there?
All right. So before the platform is launched, the foremost factor would be in terms of the data storage and infrastructure, especially given that data privacy was a major concern, which led to the ban as well. Then it would be the compliance team that we would have to set up to make sure that we keep up with all the legal updates and that we're constantly abiding by the law, and also maintaining our relations with the government
Okay.
to prevent future backlash. Then, of course, there would be talent acquisition, especially given the volatility associated with the same, and they also might be any talent that we want to sort of onboard might also be apprehensive of any future bans. So considering their job security, that could also be an issue. Should I move on to the content related issues?
Yeah, before we do that, so you touched base upon one point that the data was the major factor, right? So what new you are suggesting over here that TikTok should do in regarding of like privacy of data and communicating that to their users that their data is being protected at all cost.
Fair enough. Can I just take a second to think about
Yeah,
this?
yeah,
All
sure.
right. All right, so I think there would be an internal as well as an external aspect to this. So internally, what TikTok can do with its value chain itself is to, of course, localize the data centers they have. So, for example, the major concern was that India's data was being outsourced to other countries, right? So having local data centers can sort of mitigate that. And externally, what we can do is we can also have third-party audits in place to make sure that data privacy is not being breached, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, perfectly. We can proceed to the content related aspects. Yeah.
All right, great. So with content, again, I would like to look at the creators, the advertisements, the algorithm, and moderation. So coming to the creators, here I think onboarding creators will be very important, especially those we had before the ban, as well as those already active on incumbent platforms like Instagram and YouTube. So the kind of contrast we'll have to have with them. This would, of course, again entail both regular creators as well as special creators that we have, which would again be celebrities as well as influencers. Because, again, given the image that TikTok has, that can also be mitigated if we have local influencers and celebrities who sort of render that credibility and trust to the platform. The
Okay.
next thing would be the advertisements. Here again, we can look at the brands and collaborations that we will need to onboard to again build trust and authenticity into the platform. The next factor would be the algorithm. Again, TikTok is renowned for its recommendation based algorithm. So, just to sort of train that algorithm, specifically catering to Indian audiences and trends, would be a priority. And finally, when it comes to the content, the moderation of content can be a challenge, especially given the diversity of languages in India. So, making sure that content in each language meets the rules and regulations and guidelines that we have in place for content. Here, we can have, of course, both manual moderators as well as automated or AI built moderators. Should
Okay,
I?
like uh can you like give me in one or two lines brief explanation on how this AI related moderation would work? Let's say on a particularly I want to filter out some content basis on age. Okay, right. So how would this AI related thing would work?
Right, that makes a lot of sense. So for the language aspect, again, it would be trained on different languages. Manually, this would be a very cumbersome task. But for a platform like this, for AI to do that would be a much easier job, in terms of being trained on different languages. And as for age in particular, again, it will be the data that it's fed, right? It will be trained on content appropriate to specific age groups. For example, content with, say, which is abusive or violent in nature, or which contains nudity, it might be something that we do not want to display to younger audiences. That is
Yeah,
again something that AI can sort of take into account by being trained on those pictures and content beforehand.
exactly. Right. Fair point. Yeah, we can proceed.
All right, great. Should I look at the payments related aspects now?
Yeah, I didn't understand this factor. Could you please like explain what you mean by payment related factor since our users directly wouldn't be like paying to TikTok, right?
Yes, that's correct. So this would entail monetization of the content, which would be vis-a-vis our creators rather than the
Okay,
users.
okay.
And for the TikTok shop, it would be a majorly payment gateways and protection from cyber fraud and the like, since that's directly integrated into the platform. And here, since you mentioned that TikTok shop is not really a priority for India, we can maybe save this for a later date. In terms of monetization, what I meant was essentially deciding on what the revenue model would be and what the commissions or share would be, right? How much accrues to the creators and how much comes back to the platform, as well as what incentives we might have in place, and how those would be sort of dispersed to the creators.
Okay, so if we look at it in a chain perspective, so do you think are we missing on any key steps over here? Let's say from
All
a
right.
payments perspective or monetization perspective.
All right. Right. I think there would be one final step, which would be in terms of grievance redressals
Yeah,
pertaining to either the content on the platform or, of course, especially when money is concerned, that would be an important consideration if any refunds or the like have to be dispersed.
yeah.
And just having feedback loops in general built into the platform, embedded into it. So I
Yeah,
think
I
that would
think
be
any
the last step.
mishaps with our creators earlier on shouldn't be like happening to save our brand image, right? This should be an important factor.
Definitely.
Yeah, any risks that you see that we should be like basically be taken care of and we should be aware of.
Right. So I do think, given the nature of the platform and the existing reservations surrounding it, there are a lot of risks, especially when it comes to political, economic, social, technological, and legal aspects. So for political risks, it would, of course, geopolitical volatility and border tensions would be the biggest risk, which could lead to future bans as well. Another political concern can be lobbying by incumbent players or local players who might lobby the government against um, lifting this
Fair.
ban.
Yeah.
Then, in terms of economic risks, again, I think we might have to incur financial burn, especially given that our customer acquisition costs, our margins per customer are not very high currently. So, a lot of financial burn is required right now to buy back the market share, especially given the climate surrounding mistrust of the platform. And that also translates into talent attrition, I believe, as another economic risk. Again, circling back to the same factor. Then, as for the social risks, again, there can be anti-China sentiments in using the app in the first place, especially driven by nationalist considerations. And apart from that, again, I think creators are also very platform agnostic, right? And given that they are already succeeding on, say, Instagram, it might be difficult to sort of bring them to this platform as well.
Okay.
Um, then another social risk, as you pointed out yourself, was in terms of moderation of content, right? So just making sure the wrong content does not reach the wrong person. That is another social risk that could lead to stigma. Then, as for the technological risks, of course, maintaining the servers as well as the data centers, since we might have to have local data centers, that can be a concern, especially regarding data protection. Another thing I can think of is when such apps are banned nationwide, some pre-existing hardwares, like some pre-existing phones, might have some pre-installed bans, and they might not allow for the download of TikTok in the first place. So, although the ban is lifted, and this could apply only to older devices and not newer ones, for people who have these older models, it can be a concern. And finally, legal concerns would be in terms of, again, the management of data and any grievances that we have on the platform.
Yeah, I think it's fair to consider all these risks. In overall analysis that you have done till now, what do you think, if you can give me a final verdict on should we enter this market or not?
All right. Can I just take a second here?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So India is a growing market when it comes to social media, and it is also a very young market, which also works in favor of TikTok. Given the financials as well as the market share that we are aiming to gain in the first year, we are going to be profitable. So I believe it would be prudent to enter the market, especially since the ban is lifted for now. So, as you very rightly mentioned, such small consideration should not deter us from entering the market in the first place. So I do strongly believe we should enter the market.
Got it. But still, we saw some critical risk that can hamper our operations over here. So, can you give us some recommendations on how we should enter this market so that we mitigate those risks?
All right, fair enough. So should I look at the modes of entry here that we can maybe weigh against each other and see how which one would make most sense in this context?
Yes.
All right. All right, so we can either enter organically, which would be essentially building the data centers ourselves, hiring the teams ourselves, and managing any legal or compliance issues internally as well. And
Okay.
within the inorganic means that we can pursue, those would be joint ventures, licensing, and mergers and acquisitions. Should I dive deeper into each of these, what they could look like?
Let's just hear about the joint venture.
All right. So here a joint venture with a domestic giant, say like Reliance Jio or Tata, could work in our favor because essentially we do know that it would be easier for these incumbents to sort of lobby with the government, so that
Okay.
can be a very major plus point since that is the major concern that we as a platform face right now. Apart from these, they also do have hosting capabilities and economies of scale present already. And given Geo in particular, they can also handle local distribution very efficiently. So I feel a joint venture might make sense in our scenario, especially given that we sort of also want to counter the China perception, right? That this
Right.
platform might have, so to say. And to make it seem very Indian in nature, we can also say have a separate TikTok India, a sub brand of sorts, which has its own CXOs and board of directors, um, in line with this joint venture. Should I also look at certain factors that we can consider to decide which mode of entry might make most sense for us?
Yeah, yeah, that would be even more helpful. Let's compare organic versus inorganic.
All right, sure.
I don't want you to give a rating as such, just give me the criterias based on which you'll consider.
All right, sure. So the first and foremost would be the level of autonomy or control that TikTok can retain as a platform. The
Okay.
second would be trust, both regulatory and public, as in concerning the citizens. The third would be setup, which would entail both the setup costs as well as the speed of setup. And finally, it would be the level of risk and risk sharing. So
Okay,
those would be
so
certain parameters that I would consider.
yeah, I think these parameters are exhaustive enough. Just from overall perspective and from your intuition, what do you think organic versus inorganic, which sounds better?
Right. To me, an inorganic mode of entry, particularly a joint venture, would make most sense here, simply to counter any legal problems that we might face in the future, as well as to build or rather rebuild credibility in the Indian market. And another interesting thing here is that even for the USA, where TikTok was banned for similar reasons, it was the joint venture route that they undertook to again battle the same concerns that are prevalent in the Indian market. So a joint venture makes most sense to me here.
Okay, and did it work well for them over there?
Yes, I mean, they were able to mitigate the legal problems that were associated with the platform. They were able to re-enter the American market. So that was the most major concern, and that was mitigated through the joint venture.
Okay, sounds fair. I think it was great to see your structure, case structure, and your insights also on this. Thanks, Prityunjay. We can close the case over here.
All right,
Okay.
great. Thank you.
Okay, so to our viewers, can we share some pointers over how the case structure was followed and what points do we need to keep in mind when we are solving the case? So, like basic point when you are like as a first step that you are listening the problem statement, I think you should reiterate the problem to the interviewer, like how Mrityunjay had done, so that there is no miscommunication and due to it's most likely to happen that in virtual interview setting sometimes due to network issues or something like that, you are going to like mishear some figures or some facts. So it's always better to reiterate the problem statement. And in clarifying questions, it's always better to follow a specific structure. Let's suppose a standard structure that most of the people which follow would be your CCPC structure, and then ask relevant questions which are basically relevant to the case, and not just because you had added it in your like clarifying question list and are not relevant to the case, but you're still asking it. So it shouldn't happen that the way. You should ask only relevant questions and in a very sequential manner. Anything that you want to add over here, Mrityunjay?
Right. So, as Kaushik very rightly mentioned, there would be a set list of questions that you might have in mind, right? But they should be very context specific. So, for example, it is a very natural question to ask about the business model or the revenue model of the client at hand, and to ask about where they lie in the value chain. But here, since I'm already familiar with TikTok, right, I know what they do. So that is why I sort of glossed over that question. So just make sure that all the questions you ask are relevant, but at the same time, make sure that you touch base upon anything that might be needed for the case. So make sure that they're very comprehensive in nature.
Right. And then when we proceed with the case, you can take time after clarifying question, get your structure down, not very much in detail, just on a broader level. You can take time again in the case solving that the how Mrityunjaya had done in his case solution. In your preliminary case structure, you should consider on what broad factors that you are going to basically consider in solving the case. So here in the market attractiveness, Mrityunjaya had done, I think, company analysis and then competitor analysis and then customer analysis. So this kind of frameworks you can create on spot based on what kind of industry you're dealing with, what kind of company you're dealing with. You don't need to follow a hard framework that is there in multiple case books. It's better to take reference of one case book and then develop your own frameworks based on the industry and then company that you are going to solve it for, right? Then after that, it's mostly based on the case and the problem statement and the industry again, that how do you want to deep dive into each qualitative factor. What are the important factors over there that you need to mention? Let's suppose in uh, content creator aspect in company analysis, Mrityunjay had broken it down into revenue, reach, and features. So it is a messy breakdown. You are not focusing only on the quantitative aspect, which is your monetary aspect over here. You are also considering the non-monetary aspects. So that way, you should be messy in all breakdowns that you are following. And then in the guesstimate, you should like not get into too much details in guesstimate while solving the market entry case. You can like keep your life. You can make your life little easier while solving it over here. Anything you can add over here, Mrityunjay, on how to solve guesstimate in the market entry case?
Right. So, given that by its very nature, the market entry case does not primarily revolve around the guesstimate, right? It's very different from solving a guesstimate as a whole. So, as Kaushik mentioned, do not get too boggled by the numbers. Do not maybe spend 15 to 20 minutes just on the guesstimate. It has to be a very simple picture of how you sort of size the market. So, just take relevant factors into account and notice how I did not really mention all the numbers here, right? So, if you simply mention the percentages and your final numbers are right, that should be good enough for the interviewer. So, yes, I think that would be that. Apart from this, a general rule of thumb is you can take estimates. So, for example, I got, say, 67 crores at one of the steps in the guesstimate. I sort of approximated that to 70 crores just to make my life easier and to save time. So, that's definitely something that can be done.
Absolutely. And then you can follow it on with the break-even analysis, which was your objective of the case, that the client should achieve break-even in first year. The calculation should be done in very neat manner, and you shouldn't spend a lot of time in by getting confused in the calculation basically. Then there are your subjective or qualitative factors which are there, like your barriers to entry, operational barriers, then barriers to exits or any natural or any other external risks that are there, you can use pastel frameworks over there, or you can use any other framework which would be related to that company. Let's say if there is one company where political factors are not necessarily involved, it's an Indian company only, and it's trying to enter market from one state to another market, another state. So that way, your political factors wouldn't come into picture that relevantly. Yes, state factors can still come into the picture, but not that primarily. So all those things you can take care of while solving while mentioning the risk aspects, and then you can give your final recommendation on or final verdict on if you should enter the market or not, based on not purely just based on your break-even analysis, but also you should consider your qualitative factors. If there are some very high critical risks, you can mention that these factors need to be taken care of while uh, basically choosing how to enter the market. Right. And then in modes of entry, there's always organic modes and inorganic modes that you can weigh down based on the some key comparison parameters which Mrityunjay had done. Right? Anything that you want to add, Mrityunjay?
Right, I think that pretty much sums it up. So for the operational capabilities, for one, I would suggest be very specific to the case, right? You might have a value chain in mind already, which you want to sort of use to see where challenges might arise on the operational front. But it's always better to look at what the industry is or what the client does. So notice how this being a digital platform, the value chain was much unlike the typical value chain that you have, right? Which would include, say, procurement of raw materials and the like, and ending at after sales services. So just make sure that your value chain and especially your operational capabilities are sort of hyper customized to the context of the client, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we can end the video over here. I hope this video was much helpful to you all. Practice more market entry cases. Will be coming up with new videos on different frameworks very soon. Thank you.